Hi, Kyuka. Long time.
Yeah, it's been a bit. Sorry, I'm on cloud right now, so I can't put on my video. Hope you understand.
No problems. Meet Monica, my friend, and Purity, the Kenyan ladies, eh? Kyuka was with me in Warwick doing masters.
Yeah. And congrats, by the way. New role, new responsibility. You're doing great stuff, at least from what I see on LinkedIn.
Thank you. Also, you're doing really well in your cybersecurity stuff.
Well, I've had change of roles now.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Yeah, so I moved to IT strategy, basically. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Cyber is good, and strategy is better. Yeah. So it's been fun, lots of learning as well.
Yeah. Nice to meet you, Ibrahim.
A pleasure. How are you doing?
I'm doing good.
Yeah.
Hoping that we're going to excite you in today's event and hoping we get more people to join.
So lots of stuff within this area. This field is actually an interesting and budding field. So the hopes are high, the expectation is even higher. And well, let's see how it goes.
We'll see how much of that expectation we can meet.
I'm keeping my eyes and ears open. So there's one thing I know for sure. Gladys has always been a top performer. Everywhere I've met her, she has always had a good repute. So
we can validate that with the number of years we've met her and known her and interacted and worked close to her.
Yeah. So nothing short, really. My pleasure meeting you again.
Thank you. Gladys, is Carol on her way virtually? So I guess probably we'll give some time, maybe 5 more minutes, then we can see the number of people who have joined us. The number will indicate it is the time for us to start the session.
Yeah, Purity was saying no wild music. We didn't think of that.
We can put what is it called? Lion King, the soundtrack.
Go ahead. Hapa ni agility all the way.
My background has refused to change, so I think I'll just do it as it is.
That's even better. The original one is better.
It's okay like that. It's bringing in that African, flavor.
Okay. I realized our meeting is starting at 11:30, so.
Oh, 11:30?
Yeah, I checked.
Oh, your meeting, not this meeting.
This meeting. So I'm okay.
Kika, how's Nigeria? Or you're not in Nigeria now?
That's me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still here. So it's quiet. You're just trying to keep your head above water. And with the whole pandemic stuff and all that,
yeah,
there are regulations here and there for you to remain safe and all that. Yeah. But, so I've been working remotely since last year, March. I temporarily was in the office for some days, but we're running, I think, 1/3 of our current population or staff strength. So, but my function Since I had a change in role sometime around October, it's been here and there basically. So once in a while, I just need to interface with your colleagues just to see what's happening in the office. But apart from that, working remotely has been perfect, you know.
Yeah, same here. We've also been working remote since March.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's the question about performance and how much relationship and collaboration can take place online and remotely, how you can actually sustain it, whether it's actually a sustainable model going forward. The interesting thing is that it causes you to rethink your current models, work models, modern workplace, and think basically how does it work and how does it benefit everybody, especially stakeholders, whether at governance, management, operational, or even tactical levels. For us, we've had to rejig much of our processes, and one of them has to do with Agile, really, because in the heat of the pandemic, a team was developed called Digital Transformation Team, which I fortunately happen to be one of them. So the interesting thing is, we've delivered 7 projects out of 13 that we set out, and all this was done remotely. And these are transformational projects, and it has not stopped really. So what has happened, but I think is one of the best drivers for us to move forward. It means workplace is now without borders, and you can apply your skills however, wherever. And if your skills is actually just a totally contact based, then you have issues. That's what it is.
Yeah, thanks, Yuka. It definitely is the same here. I see we have Elijah Prakash joining. Basically, we're just having an overview of remote working during this COVID times as we wait for more guys to join. Maybe Elijah Prakash, welcome, and maybe you'd like to say, how is it? How are you doing? Where are you in the world? Welcome to the event.
Hi, thanks a lot, Anastasia, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, I'm from India. I'm sorry I can't turn on my video because my connection is a little bit bad. But I'm based in India. I work in a city called Bangalore, if you're familiar, and I'm an Agile coach. It's exciting to be part of this Agile20 Reflect Festival. So looking forward to being part of these celebrations. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Prakash. We're pretty excited as well. Just look at the remote possibilities connecting Agile coaches from India, Kenya, and really all over the world. Elijah Young.
Seems like Elijah, we can't hear you. Maybe we just give ourselves how many more minutes, Gladys?
It's 11:04, maybe 11:05. We see how we would be looking at, like.
Sounds fair enough. Just thinking, I'm getting to admit guys to the call, so I don't know if you log off, Gladys, then you log back as an admin, whether you'll be able to see the admission tab.
All right, Purity, if you could hit us with that Wildlife Lion King song, that would be great.
Yeah, I'm looking for one that doesn't have adverts. Let me look.
Well, welcome, guys. You can use the chat section maybe for any expectations you'd have as we wait for the rest. Welcome, Clara. So Monica will take your cue based on the admissions. You let us know when to start.
Yeah, just looking at the time, other than Agile Mavericks and Caro, we have at least 5 external participants. So I don't know whether I would wish to have 2, 3 more participants. And then we start, or we can just actually just carry on.
I think I'm excited. Let's do this. There's definitely a recording which will be shared to all our participants. This being a Friday and the month of love, I'm sure there's so much happening. So I think let's do this.
Thank you, and welcome everyone to the Agile20 Reflect Festival. From the stage here, we have Agile Mavericks, and I'll give the ladies a chance to introduce themselves. I'll be your main facilitator, of course, assisted by Gladys and Purity and Caro. So we're looking that you're going to have a lot of fun. My role in Agile Mavericks, I'm an Agile coach. Besides being an Agile coach, I look for business opportunities for the startup. So I'm happy to see you guys today virtually and to give you a virtual experience in the wild. And I hope we'll meet your expectations for the event. I think I can give my colleague Gladys to also introduce herself, followed by Purity, and then Caroline.
Thank you, Monica. My name is Gladys Ngueno. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Agile Mavericks, AKA they call me the chief cheerleader. Really, Agile Mavericks, our mandate is to coach organizations. It could be startups, companies, or even teams to adopt an Agile mindset in order to realize value and satisfy your customers, or just have a fulfilled life generally, because Agile actually even applies in your personal lives. So really excited to be here today and spread the Agile cheer during this Agile20 Reflect Festival. I'll welcome my fellow co-founder, Purity.
Hi, everyone. Happy New Year. My name is Purity, as Gladys and Monica have mentioned. I'm also part of the co-founders in Agile Mavericks. I consider myself an Agile enthusiast and an Agile champion, a problem solver generally. I was introduced to Agile 3 years ago, and I've never looked back. Yeah, I together with Gladys and Monica and Anastasia, we are very passionate about driving the Agile agenda, and that's why we are here today, also to share our story. Welcome to everyone. For those of us who are in Kenya and not in Kenya, hopefully you're gonna enjoy this session. We are looking forward to also hearing from you. Thank you. I'll give it back to Monica.
Yeah, thank you, Purity and Gladys. I think you've heard Purity mention Anastasia. She's also part of Agile Mavericks. She's our customer advocate, and she also is an Agile coach, driving the adoption of Agile culture across different organizations. And she is also very passionate with working with teams and discovering new technologies. So today you might not see her face, but she is on the call. And I think at this point, Stacy, you can actually introduce yourself. I don't have to do that part. Please go ahead, Stacy.
Okay, so hi everyone. Thanks, Monica. My name is Anastasia Wainina, an Agile coach and also co-founder of Agile Mavericks. Today you won't see me, but I'm with you here. And I also, in this Agile journey, we work together as champions of Agile. So thank you, Monica.
Thank you, Stacy. I hear on the background, you can hear your little baby. Say hi to Elsie. She's a young one in Agile Mavericks. So at this point, I will invite Dr. Caroline. She was with us in this adventure in Mara. She's a wildlife research. She does research in wildlife conservation, and as such, I will welcome her to the stage to introduce herself before we go to the digital workspace where we'll all collaborate. Karibu, Karo.
Thank you very much, Monica, and I'm excited to be part of the team of experts on Agile. So I'm Dr. Caroline Ngueno, and I'm a wildlife ecologist with a broad research interest in community dynamics, animal, plants, interactions, but of most important is just trying to relate conservation to wildlife and their habitat and finding innovative ways of sustainable utilization of these resources. And I'm excited to share with the team as we move forward how conservation and can adapt the Agile way of working to make it much, much, much more amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Caroline. So maybe just to have a highlight on our working agreement today. So as Gladys had mentioned in the beginning, you can use the chat feature to give your comments, to give your views as we carry on with the session. I will also share my screen for you to see the digital workspace that we are going to collaborate on. So even if you are to learn one thing throughout the session, maybe it will be how to use a digital tool or a digital board to co-create and of course collaborate with us today. And that's all matters agility. I mean, Agile values does advocate for the same. So we're going to have a lot of interactions on that workspace. Again, we can also use the raise hand feature in case you want to hear you speak up and share your sentiments. So we can say those are working agreements today. So what I will do before I share my screen, I will share with you on chat the link to the digital workspace. And I'll also encourage us to try and log in using your PC. The workspace will not give you the best experience if you're using your mobile phone. So if possible, you can try and transition to a PC. So just check on the chat, I'll share with you the link. Maybe Gladys, before I go on, are you good on admissions? Because once I start sharing my screen, I may not be able to continue with that task of admitting participants.
Sure, I'll get that covered.
Okay. So I'm going to share this link. So just a couple of seconds. Yeah, so you should be able to see the link on the chat. Please let me know if you're able to see. If you're not able to see it, you can chat there. Gladys, maybe you can help in confirming whether the link is visible on the chat.
Yeah, the link is there. It should take you to the mural workspace if you click on it. If you're on a mobile phone, you can still view, Monica will share her screen, but largely if you'd like to participate, we'd encourage you to go into the link itself via your desktop.
Okay, thank you. So on this link, so basically the link we are using on the digital workspace here is, let me just make it a bit, let me zoom in a bit here. Amazing. So what you're seeing, I hope the screen is very visible on your end. Gladys, you can give me a thumbs up if it's visible on the screen. Thank you. So we have mainly covered the introductions. So what you're seeing, the photos, you're seeing the images, you're seeing there from the left, we have Anastasia, Gladys, Purity, and myself, and the logo for Cattle for Conservation here representing Dr. Caro. So we wanted to have this visual representation so that we can walk with you the journey in Mara, in the world, though virtually. We hope you're going to make you feel like you're in Mara, but don't worry, if you don't feel like you're in Mara virtually, I'm sure we are planning some activities through the air to at least go there, maybe physically, and at least for those who are not in Kenya, these are great adventure. You'll be able to see for yourself how conservation complements into agility. So just a quick introduction to the digital workspace. On the right top corner, there's a outline feature. So if you click on that, you're going to be able to see the topics that basically the agenda for the whole day, right from check-in or the last point of inspiration. So if you click on welcome, it will zoom you into the specific area that is on the introductions bit. And if you click to the check-in, you're able to zoom into the next activity. So that's just one tip on knowing how to use this Kanban. When we get to you zooming in and out, at the bottom of the screen, you will see a plus and a zoom in and zoom out feature. So you can enlarge like that, so that you can zoom into the specific area. So what I'm doing right now, I'm zooming into the check-in, yeah. And if you want to come and co-create here, what you do, you double-click. You double-click on the digital workspace and you can type, yeah. So what we have lined up for you is some of the topics that we'd want to cover on the check-in. And one of the topics is on what Agile is and what is wildlife conservation. But all the same, we're inviting you here to also give you expectations. So probably when you saw this event on LinkedIn, I don't know how some of you felt. Did you think that we're actually going to Mara? Or we are physically there in Mara? Or I don't know what your expectations are. So we are humbly requesting that on your PC, double click on the backlog on this Kanban board, on this area written backlog, and then you can actually give your expectations by typing. So I'm happy to see we have around 4 people that are trying to access the mural, and some people are also in the waiting room. So let me see if I can, maybe Gladys, you can help me there.
Monica, maybe you can help me on that. I'll assist the guys here who are on mural, maybe by a show of hands or a chat. I can see visiting fish. How are we experiencing the board so far? As we started this conversation, we had a preamble sort of with Kyuka, an IT strategy expert in Nigeria. And we're just talking about the realities of the remote world and how roles have been forced to change and adapt, as well as virtual tools sort of taking center stage in terms of making collaboration a reality. So I'd just like to hear your thoughts so that we start this journey together. Visiting Rhino, how is the mural so far? Is it something easy to use? Visiting Hippo. So basically, to put in your sticky, you just need to double click on the canvas and you get a sticky note. There you go. And then just type any expectations you have of the event today, any question, visiting horse, I can see you right there. Alternatively, if you're stuck, Purity is also wearing the hat of app supporting Mavericks as our operation wizard. So also just post any help you require on the chat. I can see the thoughts streaming in. When do we go into the wild? Dr. Caro, I think we are already putting up something over Easter. Monica, do we have guys in? So far the mural, I can see the animals all over the savannah right now in this digital workspace. Some prizes to be won. That's a big one.
Yes, right now we have a participation of around 19 of us. So it's a good number, and at least we can also see the co-creation going on the Kanban board. So as that is going on, I think I will now invite Purity, and she's going to be covering on the topic of what Agile is briefly. And we'll just do this in an Agile way and move this into doing, because that's what she's going to start right now. So Purity, the stage is yours, just to give the audience an introduction to Agile.
All right. Thanks, Monica. As you can see, the first item that we've moved from the backlog into the doing state is the sticky note that shows what is Agile. So that's what I'm going to cover. I don't know about everyone else, but I'm going to start from the basics in terms of Agile. Maybe there are a couple of guys who've heard the word, but they don't know what it means or how it relates to any different field or disciplinary. So Agile is basically a framework that is made up of a collection of methodologies or practices that are centered around certain values and principles. And it's very simple. Agile is centered around iterative and incremental development. That means that you work on whatever project or whatever task in bits and pieces. The second thing is that Agile is centered around collaboration on self-organizing teams. So that means people can come together within a team, even with other stakeholders outside the team, to collaborate and work towards a common goal. And the third major thing I would say about Agile, and which is the most important, is about delivering value to customers as quickly as possible. And customers might mean different things to different people. It could be a customer in a digital space. It could be a customer who comes to your shop. It could be a customer who is a stakeholder, another business. So it's agility is just mostly about delivering value as quickly as possible. And the other thing is also, how do we validate that value as fast as possible as we keep building, or as we keep building that solution. So it's not just about building and giving it to the customer and then leaving it at that. It's also about getting feedback and making changes and making improvements to that solution and building it from there on. So why Agile? And I know in 2020, especially when COVID hit, a lot of organizations pivoted, and a lot of them realized that Agile is important, and Agile really came to the forefront as a way of working. And the reason why myself and the rest of the team also are passionate about Agile is because Agile empowers people. It puts the power to the people who work on the solution or work on the problem. The other thing about being Agile is that you maintain and build accountability, because we as an Agile team, you get to work on the problem, collaborate with stakeholders, collaborate with customers. It builds a sense of accountability. We know that this is what we need to deliver, and everyone knows what they need to do and at what time. The other thing, which I had already mentioned before, is because Agile is about delivering value, one of the things is that Agile allows you to release benefits and value very quickly and realize that benefit as quickly as possible. So you don't have to wait for 9 months to release a product or to bring out an idea. You can do it within the first month, and you validate it. You get your feedback from your customers and quickly make changes if need to, and then continue incrementally from there. And one last thing, why Agile, is because it promotes continuous improvement, because we keep because we are iterating, we are building incrementally, it means at that point when we stop and see whether our solution is working or not, it means if there's something that's not working, we are continuously giving ourselves a chance to continuously improve. And a lot of times, going back to 2020 as an example, is a lot of businesses were built in a certain way and knew how to do business in a certain way. But 2020 showed us that it was important to see, okay, now that everyone is locked up in the house, now that there's limited movement, limited travel, a lot of businesses had to pivot and change the way they do business. And some businesses quickly became agile, quickly adopted some of these principles that Agile has, and they were quickly able to pivot their businesses to continue delivering value to customers with the new realities of COVID. Because Agile is founded on these values and principles, then the beauty about it is that different disciplines and different sectors can benefit from this framework. So it's not, initially Agile was built around software development, but we've quickly seen, and as time has gone by, we've seen that other disciplines and other sectors have been able to benefit from this framework. And as Agile Mavericks, we were able to do an experiment and try this out with Dr. Caroline, as mentioned before. How do we implement some of these principles and ways of working in wildlife conservation efforts in the Maasai Mara? And we were able to discover and realize that she and that initiative around the wildlife conservation was able to benefit from these agile ways of working. And it's not just limited to software development. You can use Agile in different and many sectors, and in different sectors, even in your own personal life. The principles are very, the principles are very simple and easy, and you can be able to use them in different facets of life, business, and multidisciplinary areas. Yeah, so I think that's in a nutshell what Agile is. I want to now welcome Dr. Caroline, who will give us a little bit of her work in terms of wildlife conservation. And then after that, we'll be able to see how Agile and the wildlife conservation have been able to come together and see how those principles were able to marry and come up with something great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Purity. And it's interesting that I've been given one big word. What is wildlife conservation? So pretty much, I think it's straightforward. It's all about saving nature, because I believe everybody experiences the beautiful breeze in the morning from the trees, the calm breeze, and sometimes when the sun is too hot, there's that bit. So that is part of nature. So when you talk about just generally conservation, it's just about preservation and protection. Those are the two keywords. But just trying to just delve deeper. So for us to be able to have, to keep all these at a balance, to have that beautiful places, the species, and the place where they stay, we call them the habitats on Earth. I think we have to always strive a balance. So just one of the earliest attempts to try to define this big word, conservation, was way back. Even the conservation community has been grappling in trying to come up with the definition for this. And early in the 1980s, so the community came up with three key things. That is in the IUCN in the 1980s. They looked at the three main elements, which is maintaining essential ecological processes and life support systems, then preserving the genetic diversity within the natural space, and ensuring sustainability, utilization of the species and the ecosystem. So in a nutshell, it's just basically ensuring that we have this beautiful world that has been created by Mother Nature, flourishing and enjoying the beautiful proceeds that come out of it. And this requires actually a collaborative approach that engages, starting from the local communities who live within these conservation areas, the government, the private sector, and of course, other parties that are involved. And these has to be guided by good science, where we try and create innovative solutions to our world, because you find that the nature is facing a lot of challenges, which I basically think we've also created some of these big challenges. So we have to find innovative on the ground solutions to our world so that we can have nature, people, and everything thriving well together. These, I think, people relate very well with issues on tackling issues on climate change, conserving lands. These cuts across all the way to water and the oceans. But because it says wildlife conservation, so these
seem to.
Sorry?
Yes, carry on. I think we lost you for a moment. We lost your connectivity for a moment, but carry on, Taro.
Okay, because wildlife does not occur in space, it occurs on land. And there's that aspect of integration with the community, the people. So all of us are part of this beautiful space. So we have to find places of synergies where we can be able to coexist and utilize this particular space. So it was quite interesting working with the team from Agile Mavericks and sharing our field experience and what we do in terms of field planning, in terms of carrying out the various research that we try to answer various questions based on things that we observe based on things that we observe, for instance, decline of certain species or challenges in terms of poor habitats for the species. So it was quite interesting to engage and just learn that some of our processes, because we follow a scientific process in terms of addressing most of these questions, it was quite interesting that we had that aha moment where it was like, oh, in Agile, this means this, the briefing and all that. And I think it was quite interesting. As we go through the story, it will be interesting to see the synergies of using these Agile tools in terms of just demystifying conservation and making it much more interesting and engaging at the same time.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Caroline. I think for me, when we were in the field, what dawned on me is that you also have techniques that you actually employ, like the mobile bombers, that concept. And again, when you come to product development, you also have quite a range of techniques that we apply. So for me, I found that as a similarity, just where you embrace techniques to at least be able to focus on some of the challenges that you may be facing, be it in wildlife, in the communities, or back to the product development life cycle. So I think we have tried our best to cover some of the backlog items. So at this juncture, we will now go to the next stage. So if you go to the outline, we will now virtually take you to how the day in the wildlife look like. And my colleague Gladys will collaborate with Carol just to explain how the activities in the field look like. And the images we have put there should give you just an appreciation from some of the activities that we carried out. So let's now zoom into the next, let me just. So on the outline, we can now go to the day. A day as wildlife research scientist. So Big Gladys, you can take it away. And yeah, carry on.
Yeah, really excited to take you on this virtual tour. As Dr. Caroline has explained, wildlife conservation relies on a lot of scientific research. And when you look at Agile itself, it relies on a lot of experiences and observations so as to make decisions. In some of the frameworks, for example, Scrum, the theory of Scrum is based on empiricism, a tough word right there. Maybe Pirit, you can put it on the chat, but basically just means deducing data and experiences so as to move from the unknown to the known. And it has 3 pillars of transparency, inspection, and adaptation. So this very same 3 principles is what really apply in the wild. And it's what wildlife ecologists such as Dr. Caroline have learned to employ. Maybe they didn't know that was Agile, but really Agile existed. We can't say it Mavericks sort of found it in the wild. When you look at the work of Charles Darwin, he says it's only the strongest species that would survive. So in this case, we can say it's not the strongest species, but rather the one most adaptive to change. And from the intro given by Purity, Agile is about embracing that change. So on this day, we looked at it in Agile as a one-day sprint. Basically, a sprint in Agile is just a time period where you focus to achieve a certain outcome. So in that case, you would need to come up with a goal. What's the goal you want to achieve? For us as Mavericks, and Dr. Caroline's work is called Cattle for Conservation. We could say our sprint goal was how do we achieve an ecosystem balance? Like she's mentioned, how do we balance the wildlife, the humans, because we all want to enjoy this beautiful world. So this is the goal we set out as we started our day, and we could easily see the importance of starting with a clear goal, starting with the why, because this would allow us as Mavericks to focus on the day, and at the end of the day, we would be able to review and retrospect on how the activities went. So you can see us right there in the Land Rover. And at this point, Carol explained to us the conservation dilemma, which I'd invite her maybe just to give a short preamble as we go into the day.
So as I mentioned, thank you very much, Gladys. As I mentioned earlier, wildlife does not occur in its own space. There was that perception when there was that creation of national parks and national reserves. There was that speculations that wildlife would be restricted to those conservation areas. But the reality on the ground is like 75% of wildlife occur outside protected areas. So you find that there are a lot of challenges. There are issues of human-wildlife conflict when there's that interface between people and wildlife. You find that sometimes it can create a lot of friction. So other than that, in terms of human population is really growing at a very fast rate, and conservation areas are getting compressed. So that is also another issue. So like I was able to show the team while they were in the Mara, it was quite an interesting experience whereby even just themselves feeling as the wildlife species, because the communities are fencing to minimize human-wildlife conflict. And it was quite an experience because the routes to the fielding site, most of them were fenced, and we had to find alternative routes so that we could reach there. So they had to imagine themselves as the various species that were utilizing that space. They had to adapt to the new changes and explore other areas, like issues of the migratory routes have been inhabited by humans and all that. So actually that was a very good downing moments for everyone that joined us within that particular time, that we really need to find innovative solutions of promoting positive coexistence or positive pathways whereby humans and wildlife can coexist on the same space in a sustainable manner, while at the same time maximizing productivity.
Thank you, Dr. Carol. I'm constantly amazed with the conservation wisdom that oozes out of you every time. We can also relate this conservation journey with the transparency pillar in Scrum, where we have various artifacts or tools and techniques. So you can see there we have the binoculars, rangefinder, compass. So these are some of the tools we had to sort of learn in our ride in the Land Rover. In Agile, you could compare it with the tools like Jira, which allow you just to make your work or backlog in this case very visible. It's interesting how Caro mentions the human-wildlife conflict. This was very evident for us as we were navigating the various roads. We actually stumbled upon a signpost that was written, this road will be unavailable from the 28th of November, which is like 2 days away. And really, that is change for you in Agile. The customer change really randomly, and you just are forced to adapt. So we thought of even the animals perceived to be able to read this sign because the next 2 days they would get human settlement with the fences. And really now the animals beyond even the human would have to look for alternative routes. But nonetheless, in the maze, we found our way to the site. It was actually in Olare Motorogi Conservancy. That's where Dr. Carol and her team had put up the transects, which are just some of the sampling plots that we had to conduct the survey. And Dr. Carol, in this case, became like our product owner. In Agile, the product owner is accountable for the why in terms of what is the goal and what are we trying to realize as a team. The Agile Mavericks team in this case became the development team in Scrum. That is the Scrum development team, who is tasked to do the what in order to accomplish the how. So it was interesting being in the able hands of Dr. Carol as she took us through the various innovative wildlife conservation techniques that has been realized by conservationists and ecologists like her. So some of them for us, from a layman's language, was how do we measure pasture utilization, and the various techniques which would cover how do we assess the pasture itself in terms of its biomass, the quality and the quantity. And she talked about the lions and them being a great player in the ecosystem balance. So how do they also measure how wildlife is distributed and how they occupy the savanna? So let me not pretend to really know all this, but maybe Dr. Carol, some of these initiatives you've done in various conservancies in Kenya.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Gladys. It's quite interesting that as a student, I felt by reading the various literatures, I felt it was quite easy when you go to the field. But when you go to the field, you find that things change and you have to adapt. I guess that is what we call agile, yeah? So to try and find on the ground solutions, you find that you have to collaborate with others in terms of trying to just find the appropriate metrics to measure in terms of just to answer the various questions in this huge landscape. When you're talking about the Mara landscape, we're talking about 4,000 km squared. So in terms of finding innovative ways of just finding the correct sample size, what to measure, what questions to address, and all these. So the why basically is just trying to promote finding that positive pathway of coexistence. So by addressing the issue of trying to understand what quantity of pasture, what quality of pasture is available, because that is the main resource that is utilized by both the wild animals and the livestock is main social economic activities for the communities living within the Maasai Mara. We have the Maasai community living there, and their main source of livelihood is livestock. And we look at tourism as the major revenue earner for Kenya, which is really has hit as so bad now during the COVID season. So they all rely on the same resource, which is pasture. So it is important to measure, do we have sufficient pasture to sustain both the wildlife and the herbivore species, so that you can be able to strive that particular balance, so that you can have advice in terms of what grazing systems to be applied. And I think we've really worked a lot with the various conservancies. One of the conservancies that we've worked with is Olesukut Conservancy, where they integrate livestock and wildlife within the same space. And for them to be able to achieve these in a proper manner, they need to be guided by certain guidelines that through assessment of the range quality, using that the pasture disc meter and all that, I think it really helps in terms of trying to do that. And I think we've really seen a lot of success in terms of seeing the communities embracing wildlife at the same time, because they are utilizing this space. They're happy because they can be able to use the same space sustainably. The wildlife are happy, the people are happy, because you can't chase the communities away from these lands. It's their lands. And one of the, before I leave, it's like one of the most interesting things about the Mara is that most of these conservation areas are owned by communities, whereby the communities have given up their pieces of land, leased their pieces of land, releasing this land for conservation to happen. That is increasing the space for wildlife conservation, which is, I think, one of the most amazing things about the communities there, in terms of appreciating and embracing wildlife and allowing them to utilize the same space where they're also sourcing for their own sources of livelihoods, which is really, really, really a big thing, I guess.
Thank you, Dr. Carol. I remember as we were still traversing, we stumbled upon what you'd call, I don't know, a double crossing in the wild. And this particular one, I remember, was filled with hippos that were soaking in. The water was really, you could say it was really suffocating kind of odor. So I don't know, Dr. Carol, how do we strive the balance so that we do not interfere so much, yet we still need the rangers and everyone to traverse the savannah? How has that been like? And maybe you can highlight the LabSet project with SGR, what do you call them? Overpasses. How is that experience, and how can we sort of apply Agile in terms of collaborating with the stakeholders?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Carol?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you now. Yeah.
So that's a very interesting area to highlight when we're talking about, of course, when you're talking about preserving and conservation. So mostly from a conservation perspective, you want intact landscape. But from development perspective, there's also infrastructure has to happen in certain areas. So initially, as conservationists, we used to really fight with engineers. But we came to realize that we need this development also. We need power lines, we need water, we need a proper road network so that we can be able to preserve and conserve this wildlife, but it has to be done in a proper way. So I think one of the greatest development projects that has happened in Kenya is the LabSet project, which has pipelines, the road networks, and various infrastructural, the rail network, all that. So we've had various forums where we have various stakeholders working together. That is, it requires a multidisciplinary approach to preserve and conserve the habitat. So I think that would really a very
Dr. Carol, your last thoughts?
Yeah, so I think using a tool whereby we can be able to complement and agree and come up with solutions, I think that would really be a very interesting place to apply the tools. Thank you.
Thank you. We can see that conversations with the key stakeholders in government, you can really relate that with the Agile values and principles. There's a 4 set of Agile values. The first one being in Agile, we should value more individuals and interactions over processes and tools. Just tying that with Dr. Caroline's comments on how we, in conservation, they really would value collaborating with the key stakeholders, because it's not a matter of resisting change, it's just how do we sort of meet in the middle and have that a reality. Maybe as we wind up this sort of plenary on Agile and wildlife conservation, we actually stumbled upon, there's that photo there of the late Lol Papit. He was a pride of the Olare Motorogi Conservancy. We were privileged to see him. He passed on just 2 days after this day in the wild for us. And it was quite interesting. We found him and he was next to a wildebeest kill, and he could barely even eat the kill. And maybe for those who are wondering, how come we still had wildebeest there? As Dr. Caroline enlightened us, there are actually some resident wildebeest that still exist in the Mara, the ones who don't make it to go to Serengeti, but also during the migration, some of them, again, because of the human-wildlife conflict, are not able to migrate. So maybe your parting shots on this, Dr. Carol, and the lions you monitor as part of your coloring project before we move into the next section.
Yeah, it was quite a big loss. Old Papit was one of the iconic lions, which it was actually 16 years reigning in the jungle. So I think it had lived actually for sufficient time. But I think that actually shows you the benefits of conservation. So for it to have thrived within that particular system, it shows that proper research and proper monitoring, and of course the community is embracing large carnivores within the landscape, is really, conservation initiatives are really working and communities are embracing conservation. So I think that is one of the most exciting stories of seeing these apex predator flourishing for 16 years within the jungle. And actually it had actually passed its own gene to other individuals. I think it had stayed within 5 prides. So yeah, that is one of the success stories. However sad that we lost him, but he had actually accomplished it. The genetics had already been passed to the other pride members.
Thank you. Relate that to agile teams that need to sort of adjourn when their squad or team outcomes are met, or when the product in the market sort of reaches its end life. So let's conclude that on this story, and I'll welcome Monica for the next sort of events for the day.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Carol and my colleague Gladys. I hope the participants have felt like they're in the Mara, and possibly when we are winding up, you'll give us your expectations if maybe next time you can want to be physically involved in these exciting activities in the wild. So for now, we are going to move to the next section. And so if you go on the top of your screen on the outline, it's on social impact. So I'm just going to zoom into that. Yeah, so throughout our activities there, as Dr. Carol has mentioned, there is, of course, the Maasai community that largely is settled within the Maasai Mara. And as part of agility, actually, Dr. Carol had already started mentoring some of the young girls and young children in that community. And so this is what we are calling here our social impact. From an agile perspective, we look at this as change agents, empowering them from a point of once they get the education that is required, how do they come back and uplift their communities? How do they come back and challenge the status quo? And in agility, that's what we say, we are change agents. So we got a group of girls, though originally Dr. Carol had gotten a few of them to mentor. So she passed the word around the community, and we got around 20 girls, as you can see from the photo. I hope I'm projecting the image well. Yeah, good, thanks. I can see thumbs up from Gladys. So we got 20 of them, and they were a bit, of course, reluctant to talk to us, and we actually we got to talk to them after our field activity in the wild. They were shy, but again, it was also a very important point for us to reflect and appreciate how our lives are great and how we are blessed, and also to come in their space and listen to them, get them to speak about their experiences, and use some of the agile techniques to get them talking. Yeah, so what we discovered is some of them from the experience as girls in the community, they do face a lot of challenges. They don't have, of course, a lot of sex education. So some of them here were expectant, and then it was a long holiday due to COVID. So you can imagine some of the challenges they were facing, and that led to them, some of them being expectant. But we spoke to them as mentors, and we also got some of them who had gone through that process of you fall pregnant when you're in school, but then that's not the end of life. So we got some of them to speak up and reflect on their journey and how they went back on their feet after, of course, an early child bearing experience. So what we discovered is around education, their school fees isn't as much as maybe what you'd imagine in the urban centers, like maybe where we are. I think it was ranging from 300 shillings per term all the way to 1,000. And the group of these girls was from, I think, class 5 all the way to form 4. So looking at 300 shillings, maybe for you, it's just a meal that you can sit down and have lunch. But for this girl, it means education. And what we noticed is that they were asking for sponsorship. So having met them for the first time as Agile Mavericks, we didn't really come prepared with school fees and sponsorship programs, but we really needed to listen to them, and we carried with ourselves just a dignity pack, that is a pack of sanitary towels and some panties, just to appreciate them. But from an Agile point of view, we intend to continue inspecting their progress, possibly on an annual basis. That will be the frequency that we can try. And at this point is where we would invite anyone who would be interested. They can reach out to us. Gladys will share with you our email address. You can reach out to us if you'd like to sponsor any of these girls, or if you'd like to join us in the next planned CAP in the Mara and just learn about world conservation and how Agile complements that conservation effort. So I believe they appreciated our time there. The best we could do is just give them talks. And again, you've noted most of us here are women, and these were just women, so they needed to hear from us our experiences and get inspired, and get also to learn one or two things from what to really make their lives different, empower them with knowledge, so that when they come back to this community, some of the challenges they are facing, they can be able to face them head on, and that can overall improve the community around the Mara area. I think I can also invite Dr. Caro, maybe just to give a recap on your experience on this girl empowerment program, so that the participants here can also appreciate.
Okay, thank you very much, Monica. And I think this is something that just started having working as a woman in conservation. There are not so many women who work in conservation. Looking at that perspective, the stereotyping and all that that exists within communities. So I felt that having reached where I am because of the support that has been provided to me by various people who have been key cornerstones in terms of the successes of what I've achieved. So I felt it was a way of just giving back to the communities. And it's interesting that in conservation, women are at the forefront of conservation. And in most cases, when I attend various meetings or barazas, we call them barazas, you find that women are left out, and yet they interact very much with nature. They collect firewood, they collect water, and they do various initiatives. But when it comes to creation of policy, and presenting their voice, you find that very few women participate, or they're given that particular chance. So together with colleagues, Earthwatch volunteers that we usually feel together in the Exploring Lands and their Prey program, we felt that it was really important to provide that particular voice to the young girls, because these are the future ecologists, the future scientists, and of course, having that great voice in terms of knowing that yes, we can, in terms of we have the capacity, we have the potential. It's not a man's field. It's a field where if we are really passionate about, we can be able to achieve great strides. And I think that was really the main reason why we started the program, in terms of just passing across, linking up the young girls with other mentors. And it was really a great privilege looking at very energetic and enthusiastic women from Agile, sharing their experiences on how they are venturing and working on various aspects. And I think it was a wow moment for the girls to realize that even as young girls and
Yeah, I think we can.
communities and all that, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Carol. Again, we just lost you a bit, but you've covered it very well. I think we'll now go down. You can see now on the digital workspace, you can see some kids there with books, and they're all on the floor, and they look excited and they're learning. So again, there's a Sunshine Readers Club that had been started, and we amplified this by, of course, calling the children around within the community, because if you want change agents, sometimes it's also good to introduce these concepts of learning, knowledge early enough, so that they grow with the concept, they grow exposed, and sharing any books that you might have with these kids is a very great show of concern. I mean, this is our future generation. So the Sunshine Readers Club addresses that. So I'm sure the next time we are visiting the Mara, we'll do our best to pass the word around and we can, of course, carry with us the gifts of knowledge, and in this case being books. And maybe what we forgot to mention here, or rather forgot to put an image, we are also mothers, so we also had our kids in this whole activity. And I think, Dr. Carol, you'll agree with me that this is also a Kids for Conservation program.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, so the opportunities are endless. So, and I think at this point, I think we'll wrap up on the social impact. If you need more information on this, you can always reach out to us. We'll be glad to share on email, on our social media handles, and of course, with the events that we'll also be planning for the next of the year. So Gladys, the charts, you're managing them. I'm not anything in particular maybe you like to point out, because I don't want to go to the chat. I don't want to share my screen on the chat. So
far, so good engagement. We had Prakash, who I believe is one of the ambassadors or trustees from the Agile20 Reflect Festival, just saying awesome presentation, correlating Agile with wildlife. Thanks for sharing your journey. We've also posted our LinkedIn handles for those who would like to connect with us more, as well as the email address. And just as we move on into the next section, we've had two plenaries this morning, one on complementing Agile with wildlife, and then the community as well. And just as Monica and Dr. Caroline were handling the last part, I just thought about in Agile, it's about people, it's about empowering self-organizing teams to deliver. So you really just can't follow the process if you have the people out. And that's just a beautiful representation of how agility, I really feel like a change agent right now, love agility, love people. That's the message that's being driven during this Agile20 Reflect Festival. We are celebrating 20 years of Agile, and how best to celebrate with Dr. Caroline here, who has over 20 years, again, experience in wildlife conservation, and her love for lions is really unmatched. So enough of the talk, it's time for action. We have the bullseye canvas right there. So in our backlog, someone asked how Agile, can it be applied into other areas? Right there, apart from wildlife, how else can Agile be incorporated in other areas? You typically just read our mind, because that's the activity we have. Having worked with us today in terms of the comparisons, how would you, we are posing back the question on you. Agile is about empowering you. So how can you integrate Agile in different spaces? We've covered wildlife conservation today. How would you solve different challenges? What we have on the canvas there is just some of the takeouts we've discussed. Wildlife conservation being complex, and the need to use empiricism, transparency, inspection, and adaptation. We've covered that. Lots of love and confetti from Monica right there. The importance of starting with a why. The road sign right there, and animals being called to actually be Agile themselves. So I'd just like to welcome you all to give us your thoughts. How can you apply this in your home, in your lives, in oil and gas, in IT strategy? I'm just looking at our audience right now, basically in all walks of life. We'd like to hear your comments.
And maybe I could add, in terms of hearing their comments, you can double click here and you can type your comment. And also you can use the raise hand feature so that we can also hear you verbally. I'm going to put a time box to this. 5 minutes, I believe it should be enough.
So I can see visiting horse, lots of animals again.
Maybe for those who joined us late, on the chat, you'll see the link to the digital workspace so that you can give your sentiments and your comments on the bullseye.
We have a comment from Dr. Caroline here. World Wildlife Day will be celebrated on 3rd March. Wow. The theme is forest and livelihoods, sustaining people and planet. Maybe Dr. Carol, you want to add on that?
Yeah, so I just felt like now that we're embracing these tools and all that, so I think that's one of the major events that is celebrated annually with various themes across. So this year, it shows that I have forests, the focus is on forests. Yeah. So join us in the celebration.
Definitely, we are definitely going to spread some Agile cheer there. So the posts are coming in. If you're unable to put your sticky, you can put it on chat and we will translate that for you on the board. The important thing here is to have your viewpoints, your ideas. Really in Agile, it's all about continuous improvement, failing fast. So someone says, sorry, Monica?
Yes, I can see some little comment here, but I think the person who has typed has locked that sticky, so we can, it's grayed out. So this one down here, so probably we just right click on it and unlock, we'll be able to see the content of that sticky. Back to you, Gladys.
Thanks, Monica. There's someone with a comment on education, applying Agile to education so kids learn early and allow inclusivity even for the kids. I don't know, visiting which animal, if you would like to verbally raise your points on that.
Yeah, so I'm the visiting horse. And I was just thinking, I think it's the way Agile is, it's so simple that if we were to incorporate it, if I remember in school, we'd have, these all sorts of plans to teach kids all sorts of things. And nobody really ever tries to find out, is this working? Is it not working? And there was no inclusivity. The kids, everything is just imparted upon them. So I was just thinking, it would be an interesting space to use Agile, because one, we get the kids when they're very young, which means that in all aspects of their life, they're actually able to take up the Agile. And also it, you're able to get, because it's based on empiricism, it means that you're able to capture, you're able to base your teaching and everything on actual recall of what you have been able to do, which I think will address the fact that, we in schools, it's very frustrating for kids when they're failing, yet they've been taught the same way and nobody bothered to find out if it's working or not for them, isn't it? And I know it's a very small aspect, but I'd be interested in seeing how that works out. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you very much, Petra, aka Visiting Horse in this Agile Savannah. I tend to say I really agree with Agile in education. I'm a believer in Agile all the way. My kitchen menu is a Kanban Agile board. My children have personal Kanban boards. And Kanban board for us is just to measure the status, all the things they need to get done, what they're currently doing, what they are done doing, finished doing, and then occasionally we would celebrate their achievements. So I think if we pick this up in various sectors in the education with key stakeholders in government, I really see the value adds. But I'd like to hear thoughts from the audience.
Yes, absolutely, Gladys. I'm seeing another very interesting comment here. And it's saying, how soon can we have wildlife experience in virtual reality and augmented reality? Very interesting, and it's a good question. Probably we can have someone make this comment verbally and give it.
This must be from KUKA. KUKA, our corporate cybersecurity guru and tech strategy guru. Maybe you'd first define for us what virtual reality, augmented reality, then we can now attempt to understand how it complements with Agile. Over to you, Kyuka.
Yeah, and that's very correct. So the idea was many times you're trying to have a first-time experience of the realities on ground, but in a very digital space. I'll give you a very interesting example. My daughter is 2, and we've been trying to get her to relate with many animals, geographical stuff, and other things that 2-year-olds try to learn. She's done with her math and all that, but the other ones has to do with animals. But the good thing is she can immediately respond to a lion's picture. But one of the other things that she's picking up very fast is the attributes or the characteristics of a pig or even a cat. We have one here at home. So I thought about it and asked myself the question, how about the experience of a dinosaur? How do you explain a Bronchosaurus or a T-Rex to a 2-year-old without putting too much words to it? So as the discussion came up, I thought about it also. In this era of pandemic, sometimes you would want to have a safari experience without actually going to a safari. One of them has been through virtual realities. So it, in simple terms, it takes a visual representation of it and put it closer to you as though you were there. So imagine a 3D movie where you feel the water being sprayed on you, you feel the motion and all that. Think about it like a visual simulator that allows you to have a first-time experience without actually being there. So with that, you can make a trip to Kenya, have a first-time experience of Mumbai. I've never been to Kenya, I'm looking forward to it. You can have a first-time experience of Lagos and the streets of Lagos. Or you can even make a trip to Abuja without actually coming here. Or for my daughter, you can actually make her to see what the lions look like in Kenya and Mumbai and other places in the world. And she can actually relate to their behaviors and all that. Virtual reality gives you that. Augmented reality just helps to impress, just like think about it like the Pokemon incidents or the Pokemon events that happened some time back when people were looking for Pokemon scores using their mobile devices. Basically, that's putting it simply without being too technical in the definitions. So when you think about it, it's a product that could help bridge that gap, especially in this pandemic era. And it's something that you can also use in your education series to help bridge that knowledge gap as well. So that's what I thought about when I posed the question.
Thank you, Kyuka. Dr. Caroline, you have an A student in your class. This is your backlog. Take it back to our Kenyan government tourism stakeholders in light of, is it our Vision 2030 and some of the digital initiatives to address this human-wildlife conflict. Maybe the tourists don't have to physically set foot here. What are your reactions on that?
Yeah, I really agree on that because I've been teaching some classes. You realize that in conservation, in most institutions, they have these summer programs. But with the COVID pandemic, I think we've really had to innovate ways of bringing the students closer to nature in terms of accomplishing that unit, because that unit has to be accomplished in some way. So I believe by working with various teams, looking at ways where you can be able to bring this much closer and students to learn and all that, I think it's really possible, and I think it's the direction to take. And I think with COVID, has been really a great eye-opener because most faculty members have been struggling in terms of how do they accomplish this. We have also tried this with kids from various institutions outside Kenya, trying to just them experience that what the previous speaker has just spoken about. I think it's really important, and we need to delve deeper into this and demystify all these things. Yeah, I'm looking forward to taking it upwards.
Yes, all the best in changing the, I won't say very old mindsets. in the interest of time, we really have just 15 minutes and we could talk about Agile and wildlife the whole day and now virtual reality. There's one last comment on planning events. How do you plan a Scrum wedding? I don't know who put the sticky note, but I'd really be interested to hear more on that as we close this session.
Afternoon, everybody.
Afternoon to
Afternoon.
Yes, my name is Anne Maina, and I put up that sticker when you requested for how else can we use Agile even in our homes. And this is one activity that was actually able to apply Agile to actually plan a wedding. So sometimes it can be hectic, involving suppliers, different cancellations and all that. And this framework of Agile really helped actually myself, this is a story of self, to plan a wedding, and it became very, very easy to follow this framework to execute. And not only did it bring the myself and my spouse closer because we could plan together, it made it easier even in terms of costs and time management. So that's my experience using Agile at home. Thank you.
We definitely have a new career in town, Agile wedding planners. So over to you, Monica. The Mural workspace will still be live. When you get time to go into your laptops, feel free to just join the link and add your comments. We're going to share this back out through our LinkedIn page. Over to you, Monica.
All right. I think so far, so good. We are doing well in terms of time. And again, following the Scrum framework, we just want to hear your thoughts on some of the areas maybe you felt that either captivated you or areas that we can actually focus on improving. So we have put together a retrospective template here, and some of the things we are asking for. What do you feel that went well on this virtual visit to the wild? What didn't go well? And some of the actions that we are going to pick out of the thoughts that you have shared with us. So you can silently give your feedback here. And as you're doing that, if you check on this other, so to give the feedback, all you need to do again is double click on the column here on what went well, and the next column, and the last action point will be from us as Agile Mavericks. So, and as you're doing that, that's just a silent activity. As you're doing it, you can also look at some of the resources that we have shared here to give you more insights of the entire story. The story is well documented, and also the AdWatch program that Carol leads, and some of the Scrum resources that possibly can build your technical background in understanding Agile and some of the frameworks. So we are inviting you here to give your feedback.
Thanks, Monica, for the invitation. I see we're already getting some feedback on chat. There's Maasai who has really learned a lot and really appreciates the session. If I could just scroll down to the exact chat. From Maasai, thanks Gladys. My takeaway is now seeing how I can apply agility in my daily work life experience. So thanks, Maasai. If you're bold enough, you can also just unmute and tell us how that would look like. If not, we thank you for your chat, and Monica will also translate that back on the Mural canvas.
Yes. So I can see a couple of us attempting to give their feedback. I can see at least one feedback popping up. It's a great presentation. So the mural, as Gladys has mentioned, will remain live, and it's accessible for you guys to continue giving your thoughts. Anything that you feel maybe we can improve, like are you interested maybe the next time to go to the wild with us physically? That is possible, we can plan. Actually, Dr. Carol, she was a product owner both on matters wildlife conservation as well as accommodation. So there is garden cottage that it's available for accommodation, and we can also do camping. So, and I can see Tende Maasai Mara. So this means guys are excited and they would love to go to Maasai Mara next time. And for those of us who also want to go there virtually, I think we've been challenged enough by, Gladys, remind me his name, is your former colleague?
VUCA.
VUCA, yes. VUCA has given us a challenge on how to make this more digital, and again, considering the COVID-19 and travel restrictions that we are trying to observe. So we still have 20 minutes left, and anyone is welcome. And maybe here you can see cheers to seeing the world from a different perspective, appreciating life and collecting priceless memories. So for us, it was so much fun, and would love that you could also maybe spare some time, and we can always plan another event physically or virtually for you to experience what we experienced as Agile Mavericks.
I can see comments from Evelyn. Yes, Twende Maasai Mara. And really, let's just take Agile to all fields. Twende Maasai Mara for wildlife. Twende, I don't know which school for education, where Petra will coach us on that. Twende to I don't know whose wedding. And take Agile there as well. Actually, Monica, we just have 9 minutes left. Maybe I could invite Dr. Caroline to give her parting shots as the feedback streams in.
Okay, thank you very much, Gladys, and the rest of the team that was able to join in. I think this was really an amazing experience, and talking about using the Agile framework in terms of just applying it to conservation, I think it was really interesting because as wildlife ecologists, we really rely a lot on a lot of data that needs to be collected, and we have had to adapt in terms of engaging even non-scientists to help to support the data collection process so that we can have sufficient data to advise on management recommendations that we usually make. So we feel that it was really a learning phase for me in terms of just finding easy ways of just communicating and planning and using the various tools that are provided through the Agile framework. I think it's really helps in terms of just breaking that, demystifying the whole process, and it makes it much more interesting, which we applied with our Earthwatch volunteers. And I think this, when we fielded again after that experience with the Agile Mavericks team, it was quite amazing because they felt that we had gone to a talent school to learn on how to deliver properly in terms of planning, giving instructions and all that. And it was just a matter of a few days that we were able to engage with the teams, and we applied some of those tools. So I look forward to learning and delving deeper into learning most of these tools and integrating it into conservation on basically what we are doing. If you're interested, you can check on the link that Gladys has shared. The program is Exploring Lions and Their Prey in Kenya. And we basically use non-scientists to help us collect this data. And I think application of these tools, if you come across ways where other tools that within Agile that can be applied and how best we can use that, we're still open forward to. If somebody has an idea on how that can be actualized, I think it really enhances a lot in terms of even teaching conservation to students, and they don't have to necessarily visit the field site. And basically, I just say thank you very much, and we look forward to meeting, networking, and all that. Asante.
Thank you, Dr. Caroline, for that. The Earthwatch Exploring Lions and Their Prey in Kenya's Maasai Mara, the link is available on the mural, but I'll definitely put it on the chat as well. Great feedback on the great presentation. We have like 6 minutes left. Maybe Monica, you would like to close this, unless anyone has anything to add.
Yeah, I think for me, my parting shot will be from Charles Darwin, and I think Gladys had attempted to bring this up. And it's not the strongest of the species that survive, not the most intelligent, but the one more responsive to change. So I'm very happy for having those of us that created time to come and be in the wild with us, and also understanding how Agile complements wildlife conservation. It's my sincere hope that we can make these events more frequent so that we can continue sharing our experiences and also identifying other areas that have challenges that possibly can be addressed using Agile. So from me, it's a big thank you. Thank you all, everyone. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for being very engaging on chat, on the mural. And I hope we've done our best. And of course, we've not done our best. We have our backlog to actually look at it and see how best to address it. So from Agile Mavericks, asanteni sana.
Thank you, guys. Enjoy your Friday, weekend, and Valentine's coming up soon. Have a good day. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.